Ludo,
Kory, how you doing, my man?
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's good to see you. I was thinking about how we first met, man, 3 or 4 years ago at the lodging conference in Scottsdale, one of those happy hours by the pool. I was with 3 or 4 people from our company. All of a sudden, these two sharp looking, sharp dressed dudes and roll up and start swarming us. We're like, hey, what do you guys do? Well, we're contractors. What do you guys do? It's like, we sell toilet paper. And from there, that led to a 45-minute conversation. At the time, I don't even think you had a product yet.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. First of all, I love that conference. It's definitely one of the more fun ones that are out there. And yes, we had literally drawings of what we were looking to launch, and we were in the space of just trying to network. And as you can appreciate, Margarita's poolside is a great place to try to network in a crowd that you don't know anybody at. At least we didn't know anyone 3 years ago. And so that was definitely a fun place to be. And listen, I'm really, appreciate you taking the time to listen about all things toilet paper and for now this to be full circle that to be on here.
What were you doing the day before you got into the toilet paper business?
But yeah, it's a much bigger story. The short of it is, I was managing money for a living for entrepreneurs. My core demographic was, 35 to 55-year-olds who, didn't want to deal with their dad's broker, wanted to be able to have someone that they could have easily access to, text to, private equity deals, all that kind of stuff. And I think just being surrounded by an incredible crowd of entrepreneurs early on gave me the entrepreneurial bug. And that's where, very randomly on a treadmill one day, the idea of toilet paper kind of hit me in the head, and it was just meant to be more of a fun thing that myself and two others, we just started having some fun with and playing around with, never thinking that this would actually become a reality, let alone my entire life now.
So the initial idea on the treadmill, was it similar to what it was today? Or what was the original, I have an idea about toilet paper?
Yeah, the idea I was listening to a podcast featuring Harley from Shopify, the CEO of Shopify, talking about all things entrepreneurship. And I was like, huh, well, if I had to reinvent something, what would it be? And very simply, I was like, well, I would probably have it be an inverted tissue box on the wall to be toilet paper. And I would pull one sheet of toilet paper at a time, which is exactly what we do now. Obviously didn't think about the look and feel of everything back then. It was just, I had this concept of like pulling one sheet at a time. And that concept, once I hopped off the treadmill and searched it a little bit, figured out that that concept exists. They tend to be big plastic dispensers. The toilet paper is inside is very small sheets. It's a terrible quality. I wanted to make it something where I felt that it was like luxury or nice enough to have in my own home, let alone in any luxury setting. And that's what we went out to build. And then from building that, that's where, as we started building it, I was like, I was wondering, well, who goes through a lot of toilet paper? And that's where, thinking about use cases for this, hotels was like an immediate one where now you've got a customer who doesn't just have one or two or 10 bathrooms, but hundreds of bathrooms in one location that they have to service and clean every single day, in some cases more than once a day. And so it became, our focus very, very early on. And, we started interviewing different housekeepers and general managers and people in operations to understand what was possible, what problems could we solve. And I think the fact that we had no experience in hospitality led us to ask a lot of questions that I think people just took for granted for a long time. And so that's how, FoxFold was born, was from those early conversations.
Was there the original idea on the treadmill? Was there something about traditional toilet paper rolls that bothered you?
Probably the fact that my 3 and 5-year-old at the time kept, unclogging the roll and clogging up my toilets, and, they make a big ball to clog up the toilets in the house every day. I've had now our system in my house for the last 3 years, and I can tell you that we haven't had a clog since. So it's proof in the pudding there for sure.
Well, I think I'm going to order one after this because now that you say that, my 3-year-old daughter literally, she just potty trained and now she knows how to. So I just caught her in the bathroom the other day. The whole entire roll flushed down the toilet clogged, and like, how do you get mad at her? We might
And,
we might be making the move.
and to your benefit, little selfish plug is we now have a full Shopify site. So you can go on our website, buy it for your home, free shipping and everything. And so you're ready to go.
So I mean, such a fun business, man. And you guys are turning it into a very serious business. So the original impetus, you have this idea, you go to your, is it cousin or best friend, your buddies, you pitch
Both.
the idea, and then
Yeah.
before we get into
And then we
reality,
just Yeah, and then we just started tinkering with it. We literally the same day that this idea was born, we set up the Toilet Paper Boys WhatsApp group, just as a joke and as like a community between my best friend, my cousin, and myself. And so just the three of us to just play around with and have some fun. We all have full time jobs, full time careers, and everything. And next thing you know, one thing leads to another of just tinkering and tinkering and tinkering. That a few months later, we were like, okay, well, let's actually build this thing. We get introduced to an award-winning design agency called Box Clever, based out of San Francisco. They're unbelievable. They're the ones behind Caraway pots and pans. They're the ones behind Away suitcases. Like they've got behemoths of clients. And so we meet Brett, tell him about who's the founder and CEO of their design agency, pitch him on the idea, and he's like, well, realistically, it's going to cost, X of dollars, probably close to $1 million from like back of a napkin to including our designers and engineering team and all of that to make this a reality. However, how about this? How about you be the fourth company we ever invest in and we become partners? And I was like, okay, that was like our first real validation that we were onto something, was having this, and this guy gets pitched all day, every day, right? So to have like this guy, Brett, now want to be one of us and wants a percentage of this idea, I'm like, hey, does he know that like a percentage of zero is still zero, right? Like, but he saw the vision, as probably a little bit more clearer than what we had seen, and then that's how it all kind of like started to unravel from there. And next thing you know, 9 months later, from coming up with the idea, so January of 2023, now I left a career of finance to go become a glorified toilet paper salesman. My co-founder Greg, who's my cousin, did the same. Left the world of wireless to go and start a new career in toilet paper, and it's been a fun ride ever since.
Wow. And you've always been Vancouver based?
Yeah, I'm originally from Montreal, but I've been in Vancouver for about 16, 17 years now. So Vancouver is very much home.
So it was a Canadian founded company because Greg also is in Canada?
Yes, except Greg lives in Toronto now, but at the time lived in Kansas City, and was working in wireless in Kansas City, managing, I don't even know, 6,000 stores or something large down in the US. And then left that whole life to then go back to Toronto to do this full time.
And you took the investment from Brett that day?
We took the investment, which is essentially in kind. There was no cash injection at the time, so Brett came on board as our fourth co-founder, essentially, and then together we built it. The four of us from nothing, from literally like the back of a napkin and a few drawings of what this could be.
Wow. How much of it do you think was, you didn't have a product at the time to really pitch him, the concept, right? How much of it do you think was the product versus, you and Greg, the entrepreneurs?
I don't know is the short answer. I think it's probably a combination of the two. I think he saw the sustainability piece, and sustainability being as big as it is now, this whole concept of refilling instead of replacing, he got that very, very quickly. He saw a place where there has been very little innovation. It's like how thick of a toilet paper roll can you make after a while, right? Like we made a 6-ply roll. It's like, okay, it's like, after a while, it's like, hey, how about it not be a roll and it can be like folded sheets? It's like, what do you mean? So I think he really loved the concept of reinventing what had been for 100+ years. And then, yes, I mean, like any investment that I've done personally, or I've done I've seen in the past, I think a big part of that is like, okay, do I believe in these guys to execute it? As great as the idea is, are these guys all in? And are they going to be the ones to take it forward? And I think he saw something in us that made him say yes.
So you move forward with the manufacturing of the original prototype idea. I'm sure there's been iterations and it's changed, but we're only talking about a handful of years. So you're still a relatively new company. But at the time, you had the hospitality idea, you had the product, you make the product, and then can you tell me about that first experience of, I'm going to go knock on a hotel door and tell them, I got a new way of buying toilet paper?
Yeah, so I mean, part of that process was involving different hotels in the building process. And as part of that, I would bring them, hey, we created this prototype of a toilet paper dispenser, and here's what it looks, and getting their feedback real time. Like, do you want a lock? And they're like, no more keys. We don't want locks for the rooms, like this and that. So it was really interesting to build it in parallel to their feedback. And then through that process, it was actually a local housekeeper that came up with the idea of a refillable tissue box, like facial tissues. She's like, well, we've had Kleenex and, a cardboard box my entire career. Can you also make that refillable? And so I was like, well, that's an interesting thought. Why not? And that's where, shockingly enough, that's how we built this, which is the world's first refillable facial tissue box. And Kory, how I get to say that in 2026 when we've gone around the moon and to Mars and all the things is still beyond me. But here we are. And now, thanks to like asking a lot of questions and involving them throughout that process, we were able to come up with a fully refillable facial tissue box, which is now our number one selling product and in 50,000 rooms and growing really, really quickly, which is really exciting.
That's amazing. So you have two SKUs now. You have the toilet paper and you have the facial tissue.
So we have the two SKUs. We're soon to be launching different versions of that as well. So like a front loading toilet paper dispenser instead of a top loading one, and many other kind of variations of that as well.
So the concept is you provide the box, which is a nice looking facial tissue box or wall mounted toilet paper. And then you provide, through distributors, the refillables. So they take the box once and then they're refilling your slogan, refill, not replace.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so very simply, we will meet with hotels or hotel groups. We'll figure out, okay, what kind of styles and finishes are they looking for? And then we will do a one-time delivery or we'll custom make them, a beautiful dispenser. We've done that for many, many different hotel groups. But we will then create a dispenser. We'll ship it to them from our warehouses. And then after that, we figure out, who is their preferred distribution partner. And then we will that's who our biggest client is now, is distribution partners buying more and more paper every month, every quarter. That's where we're starting to do a tremendous amount of flow, is becoming more and more of a paper company.
Yeah. If you think back to the first couple years there, I mean, can you talk about some of the challenges? I know it's easy to laugh about toilet paper, but at the same time, you guys are bootstrapping a, startup that doesn't exist in a market that hasn't been innovated in forever. You want to talk about some of the entrepreneurial challenges of you and Greg and how we're going to build this thing? As much as it feels to me like you guys have been an overnight success, I know very much, because I've just been following your journey from afar since we met. But, I woke up one day and all of a sudden you were two toilet paper dudes with a concept. And now, we'll get to your social media in a second, but I'm like, man, you guys are so easy to root for and you make it look so fun, and sort of your culture and ethos aligns so well with the hospitality industry. But I know it wasn't always easy. So if you want to take a step back and talk about some of those early days of, what are we doing here? We quit our jobs and our careers and we got wives and families, and we said we're going to go all in on this toilet paper venture.
Yeah, I think I take inspiration from people like Jake at Midday Squares, for example. They've been, incredible at sharing their entire story throughout the entire process, the ups and the downs. We're not as like open book as they are. They've done it, but I really truly look at them as like an incredible marketing North Star. They've done an unbelievable job. For us, like, listen, when we quit our careers to go and do this, it made no sense on paper, right? Like you're going to leave 15 years of a finance career to become a 12 paper salesman in an industry that you know nobody and you know nothing about. Like, I have two kids, a mortgage. Like, it's like, I'm 42 now, right? Like, it's like at the time I was 39. Like, it just didn't make any sense. And so, but there was one thing that was an absolute certainty throughout that entire process. And that was the fact that I was going to live a life of regret if I did not go after it. So I knew this was going to be a level of success. Now, does this become a $10 million company or a $100 million company? TBD, right? Like, I don't know. But I knew for an absolute certainty that I would live an absolute life of regret throughout the rest of my life. And especially on my deathbed, if I was like, oh man, like I had that one idea. What if, what if? And so, we've been just, first we've self-funded it ourselves. Then we got some micro loans, thanks to Van City early on, a local credit union here, that helped us, fund, I think it was like 50 or 60,000 to kind of get us really started. Then we finally got to the point of like, okay, we need to go to tooling and manufacturing. We did our first investment round. And then slowly but surely, we've been moving it forward. So we started with a friends and family round, then we did our seed round, then we did our proper full Series A round last year. And that's helped kind of move it along the way. But lots of learnings, lots of ups and downs, but many more ups than downs. When we first launched, we didn't have distribution partners. And when we turned to distribution partners and we're like, hey, we've got this great product to launch, they're like, oh yeah, no, you need hotels to want it first and to be ready to have it before we list it. I was like, okay, great. So then I'd go to the hotels and I'd be like, hey, I've got this great product. Like the minute you say yes, distribution's on board. And they're like, yeah, no, distribution needs to have it before we say yes. I'm like, right. So sorry, who's first again? Like, how does this work? And so, as you can appreciate, at first we're like, okay, well, we'll ship it directly to you. And we got into the business of distributing directly after making enough noise and upsetting, some local sales reps and distributions. They're like, hey, we should have a conversation. You're getting into enough hotels that it makes sense. Now we're already with, lots of majors across Canada and the US. And now we're getting inbounds from distribution partners on a pretty regular basis going like, hey, yeah, no, your product keeps popping up in my hotels. We need to have a chat. And so that's the exciting part of the journey is you just, drip, 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 push, 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 and then something unlocks. Drip, 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 push, 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 something unlocks. Same with the hotel groups. We had chatted with Fairmont and Accor for well over 12 months before we actually signed on with them as our first big flag. And that took a lot, many, many conversations, a lot of back and forth. And now what's exciting is, we've signed them on, we've made big press releases and announcements with them. And now to be able to push that forward and release that has been really exciting to watch as well.
That's a timely reminder. I've been following your social media, but you just mentioned Fairmont and Accor. I just saw a pretty exciting LinkedIn post that you guys did in partnership with Fairmont. And I believe it's the Princess in Scottsdale. You want to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, as part of our rollout, this was one of the earlier ones. Thomas Overton, who is the director of operations there, he reached out to me through LinkedIn well over a year ago before we had our partnership with Accor and was like, hey, I kind of love this concept. It fits really well with our operations. He saw it right away. And more importantly, he's a really big advocate for sustainability initiatives over there. And so what was amazing is then to see it now full circle. We've created a beautiful custom unit for that property in all 800 rooms. And to now be able to go there, visit it, shake his hand, and then have him do a full testimonial about the impact that this has had for him and his property and his guests and everyone is tremendous. I mean, it's just what a pinch me kind of moment. And so we did a big blast and brought 150 donuts for all the staff and everything. So it was really awesome. It was really, really cool.
Speaking of donuts, I've noticed that's your thing. Do you want to speak to the donut?
I think it's funny. I don't think it needs to be too complicated. I don't, I don't think, listen, I think people just appreciate you showing up and coming in to say thank you. And so we very early on just started going to, different donut shops, Tim Hortons, Dunkin' Donuts, and this and that. And every time we'd go visit a new client of ours, we'd bring a box of donuts or 2 or 3 or however many there might be for the amount of housekeepers that are there for that day. And we've double clicked on that in a bigger way. And it's just been, I think this is where it's fun to you start to being able to control the entire supply chain of your own business. You start to being able to move in the ship in different ways that, the big conglomerates would never do. To the point where, if I have one here, oh, here we go. We've created our own donut boxes to ship. So now, when we go out there, it's not just some other regular donut, but we have a nice little thank you message on the inside. We've got our FoxFold donut page, costs us nothing. It's our graphic designer had some fun creating that. We went back and forth. We sent it to Vistaprint. We printed a whole bunch. And now we have that ready to go. So it's really, this is the fun part of building your own business is being able to do this kind of stuff.
It's fantastic, man. You mentioned the Midday Square thing, and was it always a decision from the start? And for those that aren't familiar with it, you guys are the way I would describe it is you're sort of building in public in terms of sharing the journey. Ever since you started and we met when you had a prototype, I've been following you on LinkedIn and social media. and you just keep coming back up. And you guys are sharing everything from the start to all the way to signing a client like Fairmont, all the donuts. I see you and Greg. I haven't even met Greg, but I see you guys flying all over the North America. Random hotels. I mean, you guys certainly have the hustle, and you're showing up everywhere. Was it a conscious decision that says, "Hey, we're going to build this thing and let's document it"? In sort of a new age media kind of a way, the behind the scenes. I mean, you guys are showing a lot of companies will post, "Hey, here's something cool about us," or "We just finished a project. Look at our project." You guys are you on an airplane, like just everything. You're in the back of a hotel, the traffic, I miss my kids. I mean, it's been part of the reason you and I reconnected, man. You've always just been in my, social media sphere. Um, to the point where I was like, man, I gotta reconnect with Ludo and see how he's doing. It's been so fun to follow you guys.
Listen, I appreciate the follow, and I appreciate the shout out and you inviting me here today, and continue to just tell that story in a bigger and bigger way. It was never like this is our marketing plan, this is our strategy. It was more just in the early days, especially when we had very very limited budgets. It's not hard to just grab your phone and take a quick selfie in the journey of like what is the startup life and the startup world, and then next thing you know, you're like, huh, well, that's actually working. Let's do more of that. Let's do more of that. And then, not too dissimilar from building a company, you start very quickly figuring out, okay, well, no, that's not working. Pivot. No, oh, yep, that's working. Great. Let's double, triple down on that. Let's do more and more and more of that. As an example, and you kind of brought that up really quickly, is like we used to spend a lot of money on beautiful imagery of our dispensers in a incredible setting and this and that, and it got a few likes. I would literally take my phone of me like in a toilet on an airplane talking about how we should reinvent toilet paper for airplanes as the next big move. And bam, it's like 150 likes. Do you know what I mean? I think people are kind of numb to like all of the noise that's out there. They want the real stuff. And I start thinking about, okay, what am I watching? What am I clicking on? And it's that. It's like it's the midday square kind of stories that hook you. It's the founder journeys that are throughout. It's the stuff that like connects with you on a human level. And so now like you'll rarely ever see a FoxFold post without a human in it of any form. You'll never, it's pretty rare that you'll see like FoxFold, it's FoxFold. So anyway, so like that's the element of what we've built and how we're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, you're really humanizing the brands, and it'd be very easy for you to just, here's our product. It's
Right.
it's a sexy toilet paper box. You should put it in your hotel. But the way you guys do it, and maybe that's what drew, companies like Fairmont and other. I mean, I've seen you guys are in Nobu and Hilton's. I mean, you guys are in some serious properties from, in a short amount of time. And I know you've had to navigate GPOs and, distribution landscapes that you knew nothing about coming into this world. But yeah, it's a super cool journey.
I didn't even know what a GPO like was. Like they're like, oh, and on the like I manage more of the FF&E through a GPO, but like if you ever like I'm like trying to write this stuff down like while they're talking to like understand what like the like GPO like is that like is this an association, an accreditation? They're like, do you have like your EcoVadis like FSC certified trees? I'm like, oh, okay, wow, like just like acronym after acronym after acronym, right? It was a lot. And so now like being in a position where it's like, okay, I can actually like understand what they're saying is huge. Is really, really huge.
One of the things I think we'd be remiss if we didn't, let's talk about the features or benefits. I know that isn't the main selling point of Foxfold, but like let's talk about that because it's easy to graze over. We've talked about sexy toilet paper boxes. What actually, is it doing? How is it eco-friendly? You want to talk a little bit about that and hotels and housekeepers changing toilet paper and the waste that comes with it?
Yeah, it's really simple. So every time there's a guest changeover in a room, the housekeepers go in, they take the half-used roll of toilet paper, they take the tissue box that's running down to like those last few tissues, and both of those items get pulled back out and unfortunately get tossed away. There is a running joke in the industry that, in some cases they try to reuse them in the back of house, which isn't quite sanitary and lovely at all, but it is done. And the running joke is that the staff can't go to the bathroom fast enough with the sheer amount of toilet paper being thrown at them day in and day out. And so, very simply, our whole concept is being able to refill instead of replace. And so, with that, we have a fully refillable toilet paper dispenser where we have interfolded sheets that come paper wrapped. And so, you just keep refilling the unit and it dispenses from the bottom. And same with the facial tissue box. The facial tissue box has think of it like a fancy napkin dispenser, has a little spring mechanism pushing the tissues up. And whenever that's also running low, very simply grab the tissues, refill the unit, and you're done. What goes in the room stays in the room. There's no need to remove a cardboard box or a half-used roll of toilet paper.
Such a simple idea.
It's really, yeah, dude, it's not, I'm not trying to educate you on, AI web 3.0 here. It's pretty simple. And it's in its concept and framework of what we're trying to do
But
here.
I mean, the concept makes think about hotels. You check into your hotel room. Let's say you check into a nice hotel. You walk to the bathroom, and if there's a half-used toilet paper roll, right? That you'd be like, that's gross. And whether you would call down or not to complain about that, you'd be like, that's gross. You walk in there's a slick-looking box that was refilled just before you checked in. I mean, the simple innovations of that is, I know it wasn't your initial concept for hotels, but the application, you found the product market fit so naturally. I guess it's sort of why it's between that, your marketing, the team. It's why it's sort of taken off like wildfire, man.
Yeah, and so and I think, unlike most sustainability initiatives that exist, this actually has a positive ROI at the end of the day. And so, as much as we talk about sustainability, benefits to the housekeepers and all this kind of stuff, let's not dance around this. The big reason why we exist and the big reason why we've had the growth and momentum that we've had is because we are saving, hotel management and hotel owners money at the end of the day and having a true impact. So yes, the housekeepers love it. The guests love it. It's very beneficial to the environment. But the number one reason we exist is because we're saving everybody money in the whole process.
On the flip side of that, I think most people would be, they hear the word sustainable and they say that's great, but does the toilet paper suck? It must be rough. It must feel, like how is the actual product?
Yeah, I mean, when we built this out, we had probably 20 different samples set out on our tables, and trying to touch and feel all the different ones. Listen, we're in ultra luxury resorts, and we have yet to have any negative feedback on that end. It's been overwhelmingly positive. Also, keep in mind that within the world of hospitality, the bar is so low. So, we are, if ever we do go into direct to consumer, we would probably build out a Charmin equivalent of something ultra thick and plush. But for hotels and what the standard is right now, it's so low that it's so easy for us to jump over that bar and that hurdle that it's been really, really easy for us to go out there and do all the things that we do.
How has it been transitioning from being, you and Greg being the two guys, the only guys, the hustlers flying around, which I know you're still very much doing, but you now have, a legit team now with several employees and, you've transitioned into founder to now you're CEO and leading the team. Do you want to speak a little bit about that? Sort of the team building, the culture, your leadership role?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we're learning through that whole process every day. Greg and I are co-founders and we're the first it's our first real business. As much as, I kind of built my own business in the world of wealth management before, this is truly my first real, solo business that I've ever run. And it's been exciting because you get to pick the people that you ultimately want to work with. I forget where the quote came from, but you want to hire from people that you ultimately would want to work for as well. And I would want to work for any of the people that work on my team. They are just incredible in everything that they do, and they solve for all of those pieces that I don't particularly love. We have Kian, who reports to Tiffany on our finances side. I call him our Moneyball guy. And so he comes in and he's got the spreadsheets, the numbers to throw it all at me. And then very simply, he's like, okay, this one distributor, he orders 2 pallets at a time here and there. Can you just get him to do 4 pallets in a 1-month increment instead of, a pallet here and a pallet there? And that will bring down our shipping costs by 2/3. I'm like, yeah, kid, we could do that. And then for me to have my Moneyball guy to take that info back to be actionable and start saving us money on shipping is really cool and really exciting. So, that's the business and the culture we're trying to build is, we're on those calls, but at the same time, we're having fun. Like we got on a company call earlier today, and it was hilarious because like on that call, there's the whole team on a virtual call because we all work remotely. And they all started making fun of like my shirt today, and they're like, what are you wearing? And one guy was like, you just come out of prison. The other one was like, making different analogies and all that kind of stuff. And so like, it's fun to be able to like be part of a crowd that keeps you humble, that we're all in this together. And on those calls, we're not just like rah, 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 we are the best. Here's all of our successes, blah, blah, blah. Right. It's like, okay, here's like all the amazing things, but here's also the challenging pieces and parts of like what we're building and where do we need more help? Where do we need more support? What else are we trying right now? We're trying to incorporate a lot more AI into our business right now, which has been really exciting in different fronts. So, you know, all of those parts and pieces sharing with the team has resulted in so much of our growth being exponential in solving problems. Cause now you've got, 10 different people addressing one issue at a time instead of just me sitting there going like, I wonder what we should do or how we should address this and that. Right.
Amazing, man. How'd you come up with the name FoxFold?
Well, we were New Box when we launched NU Box
New
uh,
book.
company. And everyone was like, that's a terrible name. And I was like, I know. We just need it for like legal reasons and to have something.
The box stays. It's
Yeah, it didn't work. It didn't work. So anyway, so we then went off and we're like, okay, we're folding tissues instead of rolling them. There should be like a fold element to it. We looked at panda fold, bamboo fold, paper fold, everything fold, and fox fold kind of stuck for a while. And what was cool is like, a fox is affected by deforestation all around the world. It's not specific to one region. It's also really soft and fluffy, but vicious and cunning. And more importantly, foxfold.com was 1 penny instead of being, $1,000 URL. And that was by far the number one reason why we've had the success we've had is because of that.
amazing, man. Well, it's been great to reconnect your energy, your personal energy, but the Foxfold energy that, sort of you breathe life into. It's contagious. It's fun. You're easy to root for, man. And love to stay connected and wish you guys nothing the best. And looking forward to you taking over the rest of the hospitality world.
One bathroom after another, my friend. Listen, it also takes a village to change what has been for so long, right? So I'm super grateful for people like you and your partnership and willingness to have me on this platform to tell people the stories of all things toilet paper and everything in between. It's been a really fun ride and it's been incredible to be welcomed in such an incredible way from the hospitality world as well. And now I think full circle moment to end it off is, when I launched this, my wife was like, what are you doing? We're absolutely not doing this. Finally, she was, she saw that I was so checked out and so checked into this that I was like all in. So she let me do this. What's amazing now is, we're able to travel for work/pleasure and we're getting some incredible, upgrades in the world of hospitality thanks to those connections. And so it's finally coming full circle for her as well. So slowly but surely we're getting there.
Well, congratulations, man. Thank you so much. It's an
Thank
honor
you.
to share your story and looking forward to this just being the beginning.
Thanks, Kory. I really appreciate your time, man.
Thanks, man.